Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here. As Haley mentioned, my name is Louis and I'm from Kick It Out. I'm the Grassroots Community Engagement Manager. So, including the title, working in the Grassroots department, engaging with our partner clubs, which is something I'll get onto a bit later. But in terms of what we're going to be covering today, I've got like a short presentation / workshop to go through where we'll cover a bit about Kick It Out, what we do, what our role is, and some of the stats from last season in terms of discrimination reports. And then we'll move on to sort of ways yourselves at clubs can help prevent or at least reduce the likelihood of instances taking place in the first place. And then we'll move on to ways to address when incidents actually do happen of a discriminative nature. And then I want to leave quite at least a good 15-20 minutes bit of time to answer any Q&As. That's any specific questions you might have. Maybe it's been a specific incident that's happened at your club or that you've witnessed and you want some advice about it. That's when we can have a bit of a Q&A. Of course, if it's not something you're comfortable speaking on this call, we can take it offline and do that at a future time that's suitable for yourselves. But that's just the structure we're going to go through today. So in terms of Kick It Out and who we are, I've got a short video which I hopefully will play.
You hear it in the stands. You see it in your feet. It's waiting for you at practice. We've been fighting it for years, standing up to it. And still, it hangs around like a bad smell. But together, we can put an end to it. It's time to tell you, oi, listen up. We belong here. We should run rings around you. We're not sorry for who we are. Let's tell it where to go. Discrimination. Let's kick it out.
So just a short video which you might have seen on Sky Sports before during the ad break. But essentially, we're an anti-discrimination football charity that entire role is to free the game of discrimination in professional settings and grassroots settings, to ensure that the game of football is as enjoyable as possible for everyone, no matter what their background, creed, or ability. And we focus on all 9 protected characteristics, although some of the more common, instances that we do see are covered by race, faith, sex, sexuality, disability. We've got sort of four key strands that we kind of focus on. One's education, so that's both in professional game. So we have my colleague Troy and Moo. They deliver education sessions to player academies, very much on how to be inclusive, what to do in case a discriminative incident happens, both online and on the pitch, and many other sort of topics. We're a reporting bureau, so if an incident does unfortunately happen, we're sort of like a third party that people can report to. So you usually report to your local county FA, of course, or via the web form, but you can also report via us, often individuals. So it might be a player, a parent, a coach, might feel more comfortable coming to us as we're seen as a third party, where we can offer you individual advice before a report goes any further. And we do work very closely with the county FAs as well. Support, so that's very much around like victim support. Anyone that has been through a racist or discriminative incident, it can be quite a traumatic event. So we have a team here that can offer support. That's both to guide them through how to report a process, but also potentially signposting to organisations that can help them a bit further. And that support also does cover club support. Again, something that I'll speak on in a bit further detail later into the workshop. And community engagement, so that's very much my role. That's both mainly within the grassroots community, to be honest, with clubs to try and see how we can best use our resources, but also our, staff to benefit the local communities at grassroots level with our services as much as possible, and also partnering with other community groups as well. So that's a bit of a brief overview in terms of what we do for those who didn't know. Quick overview of our reporting stats from last season. So you'll see we received over 1,000 reports spread across the professional game, grassroots, and social media. 242 specifically within grassroots. Now, how many reports were related to racism? You can have a guess in your own time. I'm not going to ask you to call out, don't worry. But the answer is 50%. So it still is very much the most prevalent form of discrimination we do see. But you'll see on this next slide that essentially across the board, all forms of discrimination have been on a rise, and that is pretty consistent with the FA stats. So you'll see that the 2021-2022 season, we received 156 reports versus 242 last season. Now, the FA, we meet with them on a monthly basis, so I'm aware that last season, across the country in total, there are around 2,000 reports of discrimination that's at a grassroots level. So you can see we probably receive around 12% of all the reports from a grassroots level. That's people coming to us individually for whatever reason it might be. It might be to seek that support. It might be some guidance in the process to then pass it on to the FA to fully investigate. And consistently with the totality of reports, again, racism accounts for about half of those reports of discrimination. Bit more detail into our stats. So you'll see that I guess the victims of abuse are most likely to be players, which you're probably aware of working at grassroots clubs. But rather interestingly, there seems to be a bit of a dramatic rise of abuse actually directed towards fans, spectators at grassroots level. We saw a 3 times increase on that last season. So yeah, just something to be aware about. Yeah. So moving on into some prevention, I guess, ideas to reduce the likelihood of incidents happening within your settings. It's not an extensive list, so do bear with me. And again, like I said, happy to have conversations offline at a further date. I'm just going to show you a few things you can have in place, a few things you can do to hopefully prevent instances arising in the first place before we look at what to do when they do unfortunately happen. And the first one's probably pretty obvious, and you probably are aware of it. It's about having your club policies in place. Now, I'm sure most of you do probably have your quality policies in place, and here is the example of the FA template that is used. And again, we do advise clubs who don't have any policies in place whatsoever to use this as a bit of a guide. But I just think it is important just to expand this a little bit where it's possible. So that's including your quality policies, your code of conduct, your behavioural policies that you may or may not have. I think it's important to, I guess, self-reflect as a club or as a welfare officer to think about, is it very accessible and do people actually understand what the policies are? Very often we find that when someone joins a club or at the start of the season, they're asked to look at a policy or sign a policy to make sure they agree with it, and that's pretty much done. It then goes away, and it's not until an incident happens or something goes wrong that the club refers to the policy, and sometimes parents are, I didn't know that was the case. I didn't know that's the process. What is the process? It doesn't seem to be top of mind. So I'll just always keep in mind, is your policy clear and easy to understand for who it's supposed to be for, whether that's your club participants or parents and guardians? One further step is, can it be more specific? So you'll see within this policy, which some of you might be familiar with, that it has language like what to do or what's going to happen in case a discriminative incident happens. And you use the word sanctions. Can you be more specific in your policies or in your guides as to what they might look like and when they might actually occur? For example, if an incident happens with a 17-year-old who's very much aware of the language they used versus a 6-year-old who might have just repeated a word they've heard in school, what does the word sanctions mean? Is there any variance in that? Can you make that very clear for parents and guardians from the outset? And can that be publicly accessible for them as well? Also, there's a big section around taking positive action, raising awareness, promoting equality within football in your club. Can that be specific as well? Can you say what that actually looks like? Because not only will that help individuals within your club, but that can help actually attract new people to join your club if you be a bit more specific about what that looks like. And the final point is just around documenting and sharing your success. So if you are doing those things, you need to be able to visibly show that as well. Because one, it helps you sort of see where you're at as a club on an annually or biannually basis, but two, it's really good for showing parents, guardians, and also people within the club the good work you are doing, and again attracting new people towards your club as well. So that's just the first one to have a think about. The second sort of strand is very much around education, and I've got the academy.kickitout.org up there because that is our free online learning resource. Now, I advise all club welfare officers, coaches to take a look and sign up to this. Like I said, it's completely free, and there's multiple courses on there around different strands of inclusion. So around allyship, there's grassroots specific courses. We're going to be having coach specific CPD courses on there as well soon. And there's also actual lesson plans for Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 children. So you can download those lesson plans and actually deliver workshops yourself. It's very easy to understand how to deliver it once you look at the content. Sorry, 1 second. Screen's just frozen a little bit. Yeah, there's downloadable resources, there's guides, webinars, and plenty more. So please, I'd advise all of you, firstly, to download this. It can be not just for welfare officers and coaches, but it could be for parents, it could be for players. It's workshops that you can very much take bits and bobs from and present yourself as welfare officers to your teams. So I definitely recommend you all log in. Basically, it's a free login, like I said. Sign up to it and start looking through the content and see what might be a good fit for your club. I've got 2 videos here which are just grabbed from the some of the courses. So I'll just play them quickly, just to have a quick preview of what it might look like. So here's the first one.
I'm Anita Asante, former England international. Black History Month means a great deal to me because it's an opportunity to spotlight and focus on prominent Black figures who are doing exceptional work across different industry, to remember, and celebrate all the amazing things they're doing, where we have come, in terms of our participation, especially in sport, and how we can also inspire sort of the next generation of young people to want to be involved and one day potentially be international players as well. Well, we know football has the ability to impact way beyond the game itself in terms of social mobility, bringing people together, communities together. Football clubs are often the beacons of their communities as well. And all of those things are so important to make people feel welcome, to feel included, to feel seen and visible, to feel that they belong in a space. That's what football can do. Football can really lead in terms of progress.
Cool. So that's the first one. That was on a cultural differences course. Second one's on a racism and football course. Like I said, there's varied courses on all different strands of inclusion, but it's just a couple of videos that I had basically, so I used them. This is the one on racism and football.
Racism isn't just when someone hurls racial abuse at you very openly racist. Racism has many different forms, for example, biological, cultural, and institutional. Biological racism is the idea that white people are physically different and physically superior to other groups. We think about slavery and why that happened and what the purpose is. It is this idea that Africans are more like monkeys and more like animals, are physically superior, but actually are mentally deficient. Cultural racism is, again, the idea that there's something wrong with groups that aren't white. But this time, rather than it being about the biology stuck in the body, it's very much about saying there's something wrong with the culture. So, for instance, when Caribbean migrants came to England, the language had what was seen not to be a real language. Nowadays, you hear a lot about single-parent families. There's more single-parent headed Black families, and this seems to be something wrong with the culture. Or music, one can certainly be aware with music and drill and rap, and there's something wrong with that. Now you hear lots and lots of arguments. There's something wrong with Black culture. Institutional racism is that racism which is much harder to kind of identify. It's stuck within the way that things work. So, for example, how do the schools work? And you can see that by the outcome, right? black children are still more likely to be expelled, less likely to get the best GCSE, less likely to go to the best university, etc., etc.
I'll leave that there for now. But like I said, yeah, so the content is very much a mixture between videos and sort of courses and work. So it's a good blend. And as you can see, it's sort of a difference in maturity in course. Some might be very much suitable for younger children, some might be suitable for adults and older children. So it's a very good mix. So yeah, like I said, I advise you to all have a look and sign up to
I'm a nutrition.
Go on to the next page. This is going to be very much our inclusive language resource, which is again downloadable from the academy. It might be more relevant for the older generation who might be unintentionally using the wrong terminology, which we do find happens quite a lot. It's one page of the guide. There's many pages of it. Goes through acceptable language, languages not recommended, and obviously unacceptable languages as well. So it's a useful guide. Again, you can download. You can go through with individuals you think it might be relevant for, but you can also have it as a resource around your clubhouse, for example. Be picked up by whoever needs it. And then I think the final piece on the prevention side of things is very much around celebrating difference. So you might be aware this month is Black History Month. It's a very easy way for you to introduce a different culture and to celebrate difference within your football clubs. So that could be very much around, you can keep it in a football context as well. So you can use it around, maybe sending out content on your socials and your WhatsApp groups around a Black football player you'd like to promote. It could be very, very much something as easy as changing the food pre and post match that you serve as well. And again, we have an inclusion calendar that can be downloaded via our academy, which can help you plan out how you sort of introduce these topics into your clubs. The next picture is actually a picture of Ipswich Mosque. So just doing a quick Google search, found they're very much open to having doing open visits. We do it at schools. I'm sure they'll very much be open to do it with football clubs as well. It's a great way to introduce your players to a different culture. It could be, and it doesn't have to be a mosque, for example. You could go to a synagogue, you could go to a local community centre. These are great sort of trips to introduce different cultures to your players if they haven't been exposed to them before, and just to learn a bit more as well, not just for your players, but for your coaches, the club staff as well, parents as well. And the last, just around being inclusive in your communications, but also your marketing as well. So if there's any sort of marketing that you do on your socials or Facebook or whatever, using it in a way that's representative. So using people from different backgrounds, different faiths, different cultures, but also just ensuring that any language that you do use in your settings, whether it's in the WhatsApp group, online, or wherever else it might be, in person, that you're being very much inclusive in your language. Cool. So moving on to addressing when incidences do unfortunately happen, because they do happen from time to time. Here's a template of an internal guide that we usually use to advise clubs with. As you can see, it's very much separated between a perpetrator, the victim, and bystanders. I'll give you some time to have a quick read through it, so I don't have to go through it bit by bit. But alongside of it are just some sort of key points I'd like to point out. Firstly, is around sort of speed of taking action and addressing an incident when it happens. Particularly with an internal incident, when it might be in training situation or in a WhatsApp group, wherever it might be within your club, it's very important to address it as it happens. A lot of research shows that when a sort of incident is addressed as it happens by someone, then the likelihood of that behaviour not being repeated increases dramatically. Whereas if you let it go for a good 2 or 3 days, maybe a week to address the incident for one reason or another, firstly, people involved might not even fully remember the incident themselves, and two, the likelihood that behaviour repeats dramatically increases. So it's quite important to address it as it happens when you can. Now, obviously, also this guideline is very much age dependent as well. So, for example, the areas around obtaining an apology or seeking assurance that the individual's understood the wrongdoing. obviously age dependent. Now, it's very much more likely when you've got a very young person involved. They might be using language they're not really aware of. They might have picked up from school, versus an adult using very much unacceptable language. The way you address that is probably going to be different, right? It varies. So why earlier as well, I spoke about being very clear about your policies and your processes in terms of investigations and your sanctions, because this will help sort of guide how you address these type of instances as well. Communication with parents and guardians, I think that's a very big one. There's been a lot of times where we receive reports that an incident may have happened. The club feels like they're doing the right thing, they're dealing with it, they're investigating it, they're going through their processes, but they might have not have notified the parent of the incident straight away. And it could be 2 or 3 days later where a child comes home and tells the parent, oh yeah, this happened by the way at training. And then obviously the parent reacts very badly to that. So it's always important that at the earliest convenience, you let the parent know about what's happened. And the final piece, again, is probably age dependent, but we try and advise, particularly for internal instances, to try and be victim led where possible. So I'll give you an example. If a 15-year-old's been racially abused by a teammate or abused or discriminated against in another way by a teammate, you might want to follow your process to the letter of the law and potentially, ask that player to leave. But the victim himself might want to have, or she might want to have a say in how that's dealt with. It could be through a one-to-one education session. It could be that they don't want to feel like they force another player out. Now, obviously, it depends on the exact circumstance, but where possible, we'd always advise being victim-led and actually try and find out what is the desired outcome from a victim standpoint of view before making any final decision. So that's just something to bear in mind. Again, this is recorded, so it'll be shared with you, but if you want that document anyway, happy to share with you. This is an interesting sort of graphic. So last year, ourselves and the FA commissioned some research into grassroots football, particularly around the barriers of reporting grassroots instances of football. And as you'll see, there's a varied sort of different amounts or different kinds, of instances as to why people don't report. So that they can range from not understanding exactly what a serious incident is, not being aware exactly how to report, fear of consequence, which is the highest one, which is probably an important one to bear in mind as a football club, fearing that if they do call out an incident, that there might be repercussions on themselves. They might be treated differently or victimized in any way. And yeah, low confidence in the outcome and trust related reasons as well. So it's just important to bear this in mind and to make sure, are we doing everything we can to reduce these potentially unjustified reasons, but there's still reasons, valid reasons from the perspective of someone who's gone through discrimination. So that's just something to think about. The FA Kick It Out certainly thought about it, and we are creating an action plan to address it. One thing we've done, Kick It Out, is to create a reporting toolkit. So it's kind of in line with FA guidelines, but with much more simplified language. Again, it's another resource downloadable from the academy. You'll see the contents. It goes from in-game situations, training situations, witness statements, social media, etc. I'll just show you a couple of example pages from it. It's from a perspective of a player, what to do when an incident happens. It's got guidance for coaches and managers, but also guidance around walking off the pitch, which again, it's not something that the FA will ever advise you to do, but it's guidance from our perspective, and it does very much put into context of what may or may not happen if you do that. But again, it's something that we think you should be aware of. Here's our witness statement prompts. So very easy, to understand information for anyone of what to be looking for from a witness statement as a player, spectator, parent, guardian, etc. And these are all downloadable into booklet format as well. So you can easily print these off at your club and have them available for parents, guardians, have them around the clubhouse. And I believe we're also creating little cards as well, so easy to hand out before a game, which we're happy to provide at a later date. So when I kept saying I thought I'll speak about club support later, this is what I'm talking about, the Kick It Out Equality Charter. Essentially, all it is a community movement of ours, of clubs and leagues who want to sign up to show a commitment to tackling discrimination, but also being an inclusive club. And by doing that comes a lot of benefits. Firstly, you get sort of, I guess, priority access to the grassroots team, Kick It Out. So if you do have any instances or you need any advice, then we'll be at first hand to help you with that. That can be online. I'm personally happy to come and meet you guys in person. If it's of interest for you guys as well. There's the possibility for funding opportunities through bursaries down the line. We're happy to come and deliver some workshops as well. If you don't feel comfortable to do that as a club yourselves from the academy. Discounts on merch, access to our logos, graphics, and all our digital sort of advertising content. And all we really require is to get a copy of your equality policy. We will review that. And for usually the welfare officer to complete an online workshop. And that's it really. And with that, you'll get a lot of sort of essentially, like I said, tailored access and advice to Kick It Out. So it's something that I recommend for you all to do. If you want any more information on it, then you can email grassroots at Kick It Out, or you can go check the website and just essentially apply for it. So it's something I would advise, because everything I spoke through today, I understand can be a bit daunting, can maybe seem not very relevant to your specific use case. But that's why we created the Equality Charter, so we can give that sort of one-to-one personalised support and advice for grassroots clubs. So yeah, just to sort of summarise, in terms of prevention, we spoke about easy to understand specific policies, education for our academy platform, culture enrichment through community visits and inclusive comms, and through addressing, we spoke about the internal reporting process. Have you got those in check? A victim-led approach to that as well, and thinking about those barriers to reporting and how you can help alleviate those. And in terms of support, like I said, we're very much a supportive organisation alongside your local county FA through Hayley. She's going to be supporting you as well. But if you want that additional layer from a third-party perspective, we're happy to help as well. And yeah, sign up to the charter if you think it's relevant for you. But that was it from the presentation itself. And like I said, I did want to leave a lot of time for Q&A. So any specific questions that you do have, yeah, I guess now's the time. I'm happy to answer them, if there is any, of course. Otherwise, like I said, very much happy to, take those conversations offline. But I've seen there's a hand up, so yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Hi, Louis. Just one question. What happens when you've been falsely accused, that has been proven, and then more and more people think it's acceptable to accuse you of doing something because they were aware of what went on at the time? So you had a slide up there that showed how many was reported this particular year. But in the last 2 years, since we had a big event that we were falsely accused for, we've had 4 cases. Well, if you look at the number that you showed, 4 cases for one grassroots football club, seems very high. And I can only put it down to this false accusation that we had a couple of years ago. And it keeps rearing its head. And every time the FA look at the next case, they pull up what happened before and rule that it's likely to have happened. And there's no recourse there's no recourse from that.
So sorry, what is the question exactly? What to do in that scenario?
Yeah, so we keep getting accused of being a racist club, or we keep getting accused of saying, one of our teams saying something, one of our players saying something. But as a club, we seem to be in a position where we're being accused a lot more than it happening once in a blue moon, which your numbers would imply would be the case?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a bit of a hard one to answer about knowing the exact scenario. So I'm happy to sort of take that up sort of offline to find out sort of some of the finer details into that. But all I can say is that, you know, sometimes accusations can be made, but not necessarily from a bad place, in terms of people might feel they're being discriminated against when potentially they're not in some circumstances. You know, we would always encourage people to report. But what I would say, if you're on from your perspective, is to, in those situations, just to make sure that you're able to collect as many witness statements as possible, and to essentially put forward what you believe to have happened in that circumstance. So that's all I could really answer on that, unfortunately. But like I said, I'm happy to sort of follow up offline to give you some, you know, to hear further details, more specific details into that, and give you better advice, really.
Thanks, Jules. Was there anyone else that had any other questions? I know some of you are sort of new to the role, some of you have been in the role for a little while, so you might have had experience of this. This might be completely new to you, but if anyone else has got any questions, feel free to stick their hand up or just unmute yourselves. I personally have learned a lot tonight. I didn't realise how much support is available for clubs, which is really good. You know, lots of it is free. Sometimes ourselves as the county FA, you know, when we have a case and you know we'd rather sort of go down an education route, we don't realise what's available. So that's been really useful. But also the preventative stuff. You know, even if this workshop can be shared with coaches within the grassroots clubs themselves, that you know, everyone might learn something, or might be inclined to have a look on the website and learn a bit more. So I think it's been very useful. Thank you, Louis. If no one else has got any other questions, Louis, feel free to contact me if you'd like Louis's email address, or contact the grassroots email you had up there. Louis, would that be the right direction to go in?
Either or. Yeah, could be mine or it could be the grassroots, whatever suits best. Yeah,
more than happy to share that. Yeah, Jules, no problem. I'll share that with you. Yeah, if there's no other questions, I think we'll let Louis go and get a well-deserved drink and something to eat, and let you all enjoy the rest of your evening. So that was a short one tonight, but I think you'll all agree that it was a powerful one, and one that we can hopefully share with everybody else. So thanks ever so much, Louis, and thanks everyone for your time tonight, and go and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Bye, everyone.